in this last final stretch, that hopefully the Suns come on top and they can maintain the number one spot and go past the Utah Jazz. But everyone right now, it's, do or die.
And the reason why the top four teams in the Western Conference are where they are is because of their conference record. You talked about the Suns, 27-10. The Jazz are 23-12 in the Western Conference. Denver 25-14, and the Clippers 26-13. So all four of those teams are taking care of business in a very tough Western Conference, and that's why those four teams have clinched playoff spots, because of their outstanding record against Western Conference opponents.
Yes, most definitely. Moving on to the Eastern Conference, in which we'll talk about one of these players here in a second, because he's just ready to set history. But let's go ahead and just first kick it off in a little bit of a playoff talk with the Eastern Conference. We have the Philadelphia 76ers right now at number one, and then just barely hanging on to that number one by 1.5 games. But anything can change, because we have the Brooklyn Nets, who are right now at number 2. Following that, we have the Bucks, the Knicks, the Hawks, Miami Heat. Like we mentioned, these are going to have very tough games coming up ahead in the following week. So we see that right now in the play-in tournament, we would have the Indiana Pacers, the Washington Wizards, Boston Celtics, and the Charlotte Hornets. So, and then would already be in the playoffs. Clinching that would be the Sixers, the Knicks, the Hawks, the Bucks, Heat, and the Nets. So this is right now, like we see the Western Conference, how tight that is. It can still very much potential be, even just about as much for the Eastern Conference, especially those trying to get into that play-in tournament and clinch a final spot in the playoffs, because we have Miami Heat, and the Celtics going neck and neck on that as well. But we also have the Hawks right above the Heat, same 1 game right there. So, but we can't forget about giving props to the Philadelphia 76ers, because they right now as well are in a 5-game winning streak. And in the conference, another team who is doing phenomenally is going 28-9, while the Brooklyn Nets, even though they are a great team and the caliber and what they have and put together, they're only right now at 23-16. So that has turned for the Nets, and they are on a losing streak of 3 right now.
Yeah, and 2 of those 3 happened in Milwaukee against the Milwaukee Bucks, as the Bucks beat them, won the second of 2 games tonight. They beat them 124-118. Giannis had 36 points. He had 36 points for Milwaukee. Chris Middleton had 23. Drew Holiday had 23. They won both of those games in Milwaukee over Brooklyn. Kevin Durant had 32. Kyrie had 38. But you mentioned the Nets on a 3-game losing streak, but give the Milwaukee Bucks credit for getting those 2 wins, both of those 2 wins, critical wins over the Nets in Milwaukee. Now they're 3 games behind the Sixers. They're a game and a half behind Brooklyn. So this thing continues to get tighter and tighter as these teams are jockeying for position. Milwaukee 26-11 in the Eastern Conference. They're 10-0 in their division. So Milwaukee, say what you will about what they do during the regular season. They're always a really good regular season team, Joanna, but let's see what happens once they get to the playoffs. Now that they have clinched a playoff spot, is this a team that can turn it on in the second season, in the postseason, and actually make a run at an NBA championship? Because we know over the last couple of seasons, they've had the best record in the NBA, but did nothing in the playoffs. They're a Jekyll and Hyde when it comes to regular season and postseason.
Yeah, they've been at that very, like you said, they've been in that cusp where you think they're going to make it and they just fall short. And it's just to that, just by so little.
Yep.
By just a small margin. And you think they're going to be your Cinderella team, and they just happen to just all, come crumbling down. But they have here, just looking at what they have, looking ahead in their schedule, they have the Washington Wizards on Wednesday. They have the Houston Rockets. Then they have, it's going to be a tough team to beat, because we know how the San Antonio Spurs are, especially when it's that playoff time.
Yes.
So then they go on and play in Orlando. Then they have the Pacers. So another, playoff contending team there.
Right.
So it's not gonna be coming easy to the Bucks. So this is going to be a very challenging time, and this is where they're going to have to step it up. But not only here, but if they are able to go ahead and clinch a playoff spot, which and go into that, then they have even more to prove because that's only going to get tougher.
It always gets tougher toward the second season when, again, everybody is fighting for position. They're jockeying. As you mentioned, the Heat are just a half a game ahead of the Boston Celtics. Boston would love to jump over into number 6, knock Miami down. So they're in the play-in game. They don't want to be in that play-in tournament against Charlotte, nor do the Indiana Pacers want to face the Washington Wizards with that guy who is about to create history, that guy Russell Westbrook. I think that's the guy that we're going to talk about in the next segment. This guy who just 12 years into the NBA, Johanna, and he is just a triple-double machine. What Russell Westbrook is doing in his career is just, it's mystifying. It really is. He's doing it every single night for the Wizards.
And he is. But before we get ahead of ourselves, Ed, I want to go ahead and still go into talking a little bit about the Nets and the 76ers going into the playoffs. So we have the Nets. They're not going to have it easy in the following week because they play. Here we go. Dallas, they play Denver, they play Chicago, then they play San Antonio, we have another playoff contention teams, and they're playing Eastern and Western Conference, so that it's gonna be even more, imperative that the Nets win these games because it's gonna be even more of a closer draw for them to whether they stay where they are at, whether they drop or they come up to number 1.
And it's tough, Johanna, because they're in the middle of a road trip. Obviously, we talked about the 2 games in Milwaukee that they lost to start the road trip. And before that, they lost to Portland at home by 19 points to the Portland Trailblazers. Thursday, they're in Dallas. Saturday, they're in Denver. And then next Tuesday, they're in Chicago. So they're in the midst of a 5-game road trip, again, against Dallas and Denver, 2 playoff contending teams, the Chicago Bulls. And then they end with the Spurs, the Bulls, and the Cavaliers at home.
It's a very, very pivotal moment for the Nets, but also the Sixers, because as you look ahead on Wednesday, they face Houston, then they go on to New Orleans, the Pelicans. Then you have the Detroit Pistons. Following that, you have the Pacers, and then the Heat. And then they actually do play on the 14th as well against Orlando. Yeah. So here we go again. This is going to be, it can go any which way.
Sure, it could.
So if you think that, by now, this is something that we typically see in the playoffs, you can see a team where it's going to land. Yes, even though they have clinched a spot, but you still have where everyone's going to lie. Is it going to be number 1? Is it going to be number 2? And then from there, who's going to play whom? So, because we still have those that, okay, are they going to be in the play-in tournament, or are they going to go ahead and be able to clinch a playoff spot? There's still a lot of moving pieces.
It is. It's a whole lot. And the Sixers, of course, want to continue to win, irregardless of what the Nets are doing right now with their 3-game losing streak. The Sixers have to continue to win. And, of course, they want that coveted number 1 spot. It's an easier road to the NBA Finals, of course, when you've got that number 1 seed. And it's when you'll have the majority of your games at home, you'll have the home court advantage at Philadelphia with the fans there. It's really crazy. And to think that the Washington Wizards are rolling right now, and that was a team that was dead in the water at the beginning of the season, but now they're at the number 10 spot, and it looks like they're firmly entrenched there. They're 3 games ahead of the Toronto Raptors, and they had a great win the other night over Indiana. I believe they scored 154 points. We talked about that, just what they were able to do and how they were able to resurrect their season is just a master stroke of genius, just on their part to be where they are.
No, definitely. And speaking of the Wizards, which I'll go ahead and bring it in now, is Russell Westbrook. It's been phenomenal. He's been averaging triple doubles, I don't know, for how many games. And right now at this moment, if he doesn't, probably don't have any triple doubles for the rest of the season, he will still be averaging, a good number for triple doubles. And he will still have triple doubles for the season.
Yes.
We'll be averaging them anyway. So this is something that probably hasn't been done. I don't know when was the last time this has been done. So I can tell you that Russell Westbrook has averaged triple doubles over his last about 400 games dating back to 2015. Like you said, he's just a triple double machine. There's only 2 players that in history that have ever had any such season, and which is Oscar Robertson and Wilt Chamberlain. Yep,
Oscar, the man who he will assume. We assume he will pass that record. He's only 3 triple doubles away from breaking Oscar's record. So on this pace, you would think that he would break Oscar's record, which that was one of the records I would think that would never get broken, the assist record. But from the 2016 through 2019 seasons, his last 3 seasons in Oklahoma City, that's when he averaged a triple-double for those last 3 years in Oklahoma City. And then he comes to Washington and picks up where he left off in Oklahoma City. That's unbelievable what Russell did. Oh, it's mind blowing what Russell was doing.
Talking about it is just giving me, chills, giving me chicken skin, giving me, it's just very exciting. And it's something that you don't see a player in any league, whether that's the NBA, the NFL, or the MLB, where they can pretty much pick up where it is that they left off and continue having those numbers, from one team to a next, from one season to another.
Yes.
And this it speaks to, who he is. And just for April, he was, it marked the 10th time in Russell Westbrook's career that he averaged a triple-double in a month of 10, minimum of 10 games. That's the most in any NBA history.
Unbelievable. And last night against Indiana, he had 14 points, 21 rebounds, and 24 assists, Joe. That was his league-leading 30-second triple-double. Yeah, he is 3 short of Oscar's record. Just that stat line itself, 24 assists. He only took 8 shots, Johanna, because he was busy distributing the ball. That's why he only took 8 shots. He's busy trying to get the ball to all of his other players. He's being a facilitator right now because he knows that's what he needs to do, because he feels the Wizards are where they are right now, and they're really feeling themselves. They're feeling that they are on the verge of something special, that they believe that if they do play Indiana in the play-in tournament like they did last night, they can beat them and they can make the tournament.
Definitely. So, and this is something to look out for. And as we see the Wizards playing through the next week and even through the playoffs, we have to watch out for Russell Westbrook, because he will be one of these nights, any given night, which could be, the following game, that he will be making history and be passing Oscar Robertson.
Yes.
So I can only imagine how excited our friend Kelsey, how she excited she was talking to Wizards when we had her on just recently, and a team to not sleep on. Because this is definitely one of the teams where I didn't even expect to see them where they are at, much less seeing Russell Westbrook, accomplishing what he's about to accomplish this season. Definitely both, coming under the radar and surprising you.
Yeah, me being from the DMV, like our sister Kelsey is, I was so disappointed when they started off the season 0-5. They were 2-8 to start the season. I'm just like, oh my goodness, is this the way the season is going to go for our hometown Wizards? And then they had 6 straight games after that postponed. And then after those postponements in the beginning of the season, Joe, they lost 4 more in a row. So I believe they were like 3-12 at some point in the beginning of the season. And I'm just sitting there like, oh, I know my people back home have got to be so upset at the way our Wizards are playing, but my goodness gracious, have they not turned it around? And Scott Brooks has done a phenomenal job in getting his team turned around. And of course, he's got so much talent there with Bradley Beal and Westbrook. And if he does break the record, they're going to go on a 5-game road trip, so it's not going to be easy for the Wizards as well. They have to go to Milwaukee tomorrow night, at Toronto on Thursday, Saturday at Indiana, so they have a rematch with the Pacers. Then next Monday and Wednesday, they're in Atlanta for a 2-game set. So he could possibly break the record in Indiana on Saturday night. He could break Oscar's record on Saturday night.
Yes, so it's going to be a little bit challenging, definitely for the Wizards, because like you mentioned, we have the Bucks, they have Toronto, they have the Pacers. So it's, just like any of the others that we've mentioned, it's going to be very important to keep an eye on this team, and definitely keeping an eye on Russell Westbrook.
Yes.
As the season comes to an end here shortly.
Yep. Because the play-in tournament starts on May 18th. That is in 2 weeks from today. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 2 weeks from today. It's all going to kick off with these 7, 8, 9, and 10 teams. It's going to be so much fun. I'm excited.
Yes. Most definitely. I am excited too, and I'll be trying to tune in as much as I can, and seeing Russell Westbrook make history one of these nights soon. Yeah,
because he is exciting. He is a box office draw. It's must watch TV when Russell Westbrook and the Wizards get on the court, and Again, me being from back there in the DMV, I'm so excited that the Wizards are playing where they are right now, as opposed to being in the cellar of the Eastern Conference. They're actually competing for a playoff spot. It's really exciting, and I know everybody back home is excited for the Wizards to see their rise up, and let's hope they make the playoffs. It'd be great to have them in there.
What would you do with if you see the Wizards and the Suns going against each other, if that does happen to be a possibility?